That's
give
why I
y'all.
like
Let me
listening
give
to the
y'all.
Boozer Bud podcast because y'all so informative. So I love this
Right.
platform.
Thank you,
Very
God.
informative.
Thank you. Welcome y'all to another edition of the Cypher. I'm C.I. Wise, your host with a kid co-host. What's going on, kid?
What's up? What's up? What's up? We back for another episode, and I'm so excited. This is a very special guest, but I'll let him introduce himself, and we'll just get to talking.
First and foremost, it's an honor to be on the Boozer Bud podcast. My name is Winston McIntosh. Most know me as IJUST. I'm a father, a husband. I'm a small business owner, and I'm one who indulges in cannabis. Have for probably over 3.5 decades at this point, and I have a medical condition, so I just want to speak and educate those who indulge in the culture, like myself, and see how it all correlates to whether you're a healthy person or a person who has been diagnosed with a medical condition. Can you still indulge in cannabis? So, yeah, it's pretty much what I'm bringing to the table today.
Why don't you start us off with your relationship with this wonderful plant that we call cannabis, man?
Oh man,
How were
great
you first?
question. Well, man, it takes me back to like my childhood, and I will probably say I was maybe 14 when I first tried cannabis. Um, it
You
was,
remember who it
my
was with?
friends, my brothers, running with my crew, Mr. CIYs, Be Real, BU. And back then, I think I may have been out of our group the last to try it. Um, so when we all got together, I think we were like in the dugout or somewhere like that by a baseball field. And I tried it, and it was a little bit, unsettling initially. But at that point, I fell in love with marijuana. Now, I must say, it was already in me, I think, because my father indulges in marijuana and have for basically a lifetime as well. So, yeah, that's kind of how I came into my initial contact with cannabis. And as I got older and wiser, my understanding of cannabis became more of a research and understanding what it is and how it correlates to me.
Why don't you take us through a little bit of your journey through the years, so that people understand how far your relationship has come with cannabis. Some of the highs and the lows.
Well, I think there are pivotal points as far as my relationship with cannabis when I think back. So, obviously the first time I smoked cannabis, who I was with, the people that I were with are my brothers. So, I trusted them. We were in a good environment. And then I think about like other points where we started, then being able to smoke outside, going back to those days. And then I think about the time when we went to Jamaica, me, Be Real, and CI. And that's when my relationship with cannabis kind of went to another level because we were smoking with some Rastafarians, and they were in the cypher themselves, and they were building on some things. So it was me, Be Real, and CI. We were over there smoking with them, and we were just laughing. And I just remember the dread saying, weed is not for laughing, it's for meditation. And I think at that point, my relationship with cannabis kind of changed. And then I was more curious about, that's real profound right there, but, still dealing with it recreationally. And then I would say later on, my relationship with marijuana kind of changed a little bit because then it became more of using it maybe to sell at some points in time. And at that point, it was more like combining the two worlds. So it was like, smoking marijuana and then also selling marijuana. So, those are like moments that I think of, like shit. Other than that, like if I were like pulled over by the police, I remember a couple times marijuana played a role in my life in that manner. And being able to get out of jail, from the charges. So I think pretty much every time I've been arrested, I probably had marijuana on me. So, then the relationship with marijuana kind of changes from there. So once,
I mean,
I got out of that world as far as my relationship with marijuana, cannabis, then it became more of a medicinal reason. So, without being too long-winded, that's kind of my journey and the pivotal moments I think about my relationship with cannabis.
okay. So was there ever never into your mind to stop the usage of cannabis once you started?
I have at several moments. Sometimes, like I had my CDL. I was a truck driver doing over the road truck driving, and to take certain tests, and I had to stop smoking marijuana. So those are like moments where I stopped smoking cannabis almost involuntarily, in order to, provide for my family. But as far as voluntarily stop smoking, I will have moments, where I may go like vegan and go on a sabbatical or fast. And then, voluntarily, I may just stop smoking marijuana for, a couple months, detox a little bit, work out more, and, with the intent to coming back to smoke cannabis.
Crazy you say that because for me, I've been like, I haven't really spent time where I voluntarily just stopped smoking weed for real. It's kind of like you're saying, like, oh, if I know I'm applying for a job. Well, first off, I had just started looking for jobs that just don't drug test because I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work for me. But those are times that I would stop smoking. But like I just recently voluntarily like just went on like a 2 week break of just not smoking. And I realized that's called like a tolerance break. And like I knew the name, but I didn't know what it meant. And I was looking on Instagram and I believe it was Brown Box that had posted the post and where she was saying like a tolerance breaks helps you to like gain clarity sometimes in your usage. Like, are you using healthy still? Like you get that time to reflect even on your marijuana usage. And then also just like it allows for your body to reset, like you said, like detox. So oftentimes it can improve your cannabis experience if you find that tolerance breaks, does that for you, but you have to like first explore a tolerance break to see its impact on you. And I was like, oh wow, like I guess that's kind of a concept to play around with how you use and how often, I guess, depending on your health needs, I guess, and what you're doing and your goal for that period in your life, like how people might cut out sweets for 3 months or whatever.
All we're doing in essence is speaking about a diet, or we use different words for the same concept. So just like water is healthy for the body, you can't sit down and drink water all day, you'll drown yourself. So in a healthy relationship with cannabis, one wouldn't be able to sit down and smoke all day. However, we want to get to the point of like our brother is speaking about, because in a medicinal sense, that was just a recreational sense, but in a medicinal sense, uh, you weren't even cognizant that you may have even needed it medicinally because of the stigma that was placed on cannabis during our coming up, right?
True indeed. Like during our coming up, it was the gateway to all the drugs, you know.
Mhm.
Yes.
Even though I started drinking alcohol before I smoked marijuana or cannabis, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, certainly in our time, it was such a stigma placed on it. We're from the era of Reagan, kind of at the end of his, where his wife had the Say No to Drugs campaign, and they would just show like a pan with fried eggs, and this is your brain on drugs. Like, those were commercials that we saw all the time, so it's certainly a stigma placed on cannabis, in our upcoming and when we first indulged in it.
Tell us a little bit about this medical condition that, in your opinion or in your knowledge, because you actually know that it helps.
Yes, I do. And think that's a great question. And to the two things that both of y'all said was, health, that was in common, and why sometimes I would take the break from cannabis as far as health is related. And that's when, it would be periods of time where I would want to do more research and understand, this is something I love doing as far as, smoking cannabis, but I do understand that there are times where I gotta probably take a step back, whether it was voluntary or involuntarily. So, my medical condition is unspecified convulsions, which falls under the category of epilepsy and seizures. But the understanding is that, one, epilepsy is a acute condition and seizures are unspecified convulsions. So, which means that it is possible for an epileptic to have seizures without convulsions, and just like it's possible to have convulsions in the absence of epilepsy. And that's the category I'll fall in because I'm not diagnosed and never been under any neurologist as a epileptic, although I've had, convulsions. So once I understood that and was like, wow, like that's deep right there, you know, it started again. This is something I love doing. And then I started doing like processes of elimination and understanding like, how certain things can affect person who's in my condition. So whether that was alcohol, okay, I'm gonna stop drinking. Whether back then I indulged in like, eat pills, I was partying back then. So, things like that, stop doing it, cutting it out. And then just understanding how certain things affect one's health and, what depending on what your health condition is. So when I came across, some more science through the National Institute of Health, and this is again kind of more in my later years. At first, it was again just recreational smoking cannabis, but as I grew and got older and got wiser, my want for more knowledge of cannabis, something I enjoy doing, and I love the effects of it without all the side effects that alcohol and harder drugs may have on a person. How can I still keep this relationship with cannabis? And then it just led me into research. And as I started researching, and one of the main things I must say that led me into the research was kind of how medical marijuana was passed in the state of New Jersey. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a young girl, and she was having a lot of seizures, or she was an epileptic, and they would treat her with more of a CBD, but it wasn't too much grafting, but it was still from the cannabis plant, or the marijuana plant. And then that kind of helped lead to medical marijuana being passed in New Jersey. So I started just doing more research, and upon doing that research, just understanding like what does canna mean, for example, and what brain receptors does canna affect, and what does bis mean, and what brain receptors is attached to bis. Like bis is the serotonin, like canna is the dopamine. So as I started getting into this research, it really started interesting me because, when I would talk to my neurologist and have a conversation with her, again, unspecified convulsions is a weird space or something to be categorized. Like we really don't know. You can't label you as an epileptic because, epileptic means somebody that has them multiple times and have a lot of them. But what is the source of it? So that kind of led me into the research of cannabis and really understanding like in ancient times, not to get too deep with it, but, the Chinese would categorize cannabis as sacred, almost like a yin and a yang type thing. And just seeing like the Sumerians, Texts, and Arabians, they used to have, people who had seizures, or like the Dreads or Jamaicans would call it fits, and they would treat them with cannabis. So this is something that goes back both, meaning people who have been epileptics or had seizures, and how ancient this plant cannabis is. So yeah,
So could
that's kind of what led me up to, keeping my relationship with cannabis and my medical condition.
those seizures at those times been confused for demons possessing the body, and could the cannabis then be presumed as anointing oil to exercise the body of the demons?
Yes. And on the real, see, I would definitely say, yeah, that probably was it. Because when I think about the way the Jamaicans use the word fits, and you think about colloquially what fits is, it's like somebody having a fit, like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would probably say, yeah, they probably on the dark side may have thought about it like that. And both can be true. And whether they really understood the science of it, or they were just saying it's an anointing oil, yeah, I would certainly say that's conceivable.
And I think what you kind of touched on, what I'm like hearing and listening as I listen to the two, you kind of share your experiences from a different era and we is that also like people need to fully understand the role that media and publications and what are you reading? Who are you listening to? How that impacts how you could view the world? Because all of the things that you say, like for example, I know like with the FDA approves this and that and the third, the FDA doesn't go through and like they don't just turn their eye to everything, right? So if they decide they don't want to test for it in that way, then it's not going to be FDA approved, right? So if you never test weed to even see what its benefits are medicinally, weed is never going to be FDA approved, and people will just see the whether it's approved or not and think that if it's not approved, it's not healthy for you. And so like you really have to do your own research because actually these other cultures that you're naming, these even if they are ancient cultures, they studied this plant. And what we're seeing now, what we're reading about now is their trial and error as they're studying that plant. They're leaving the evidence in the fact of, oh, we notice that when people have seizures and we do our process of elimination, we do our trial and error, we see that their seizures are settled by cannabis. But then that goes back to like one field of study that I'm like really big in is called epistemology, which is basically like, how do we know what we know? Like, what do we prioritize as knowledge? What do we deem as fact? And what is objective and what's subjective? Like, how do we know what we know? How do we just trust that what's in the textbook is the real truth or whatever? And so, like, if you discredit some of these, you're naming a lot of cultures that are often marginalized in America. You said Chinese, you said Jamaican, like if you're dismissing these cultures as being able to create knowledge or to understand the world, then their findings are looked at as witchcraft or made believe or they're made out to be something that they're not, so cannabis was really villainized.
Absolutely. And when we think about it, to your point, when you have those ancient texts, going back to the Chinese Emperor Fu, Sai, and you go back to Arabian documents of the 12th century, they all speak about it. And then you fast forward it to when cannabis was first regulated in the United States under the Food and Drug Administration, or the Food and Drug Act, I believe. And then then there was the I believe the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. And then you speak about American Medical Association, Big Pharma. They consider the more restrictive infringements on like doctors' freedom to treat patients. And then here comes the Drug Enforcement Agency, and then they schedule marijuana or cannabis as a Schedule 1 drug. So at that point, you're going to be hard pressed as a researcher to get funds to be able to further do the research on cannabis when it's been labeled as a Schedule 1 drug.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of messed me up is that it's categorized as a Schedule 1 drug, but like opioids is a Schedule 2 drug, which is
Mm-hmm.
more addictive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now y'all getting into political factors though, so not without delving deep into any of that. The misconception is that the research couldn't have been done on it. But the truth of the matter is it was like Area 51, where the research had been being done by those scientists and researchers in the FDA to know the truth, yet misconceptions were spread to the public. In order to keep certain things sanctioned and regulated, you had to spread these misconceptions to normalize or to make valid your reasoning for making illegal marijuana.
And like, to speak to your point too, is like, I think really, booze or bud, we always say consumption is a choice, and consumption should be done well informed. But I think like what we're kind of all hinting at is, and that's why I say maybe it's like our way of knowing, is when you get information, question it. Like, even if it's from your own head, question yourself and continue to investigate, because you're kind of talking about how our understanding of weed is informed by social factors, what we're hearing in our communities, in our house, what we are seeing, the people that we socialize, are they doing it, are they not? But it's also informed by governmental factors, political factors, like what is the policy around it? Why is the policy that way? What are we funding? What are we researching? What is being produced legally in the legal market versus the illegal market? Why is it illegal? Like, you have to constantly ask yourself questions, because there's so many factors. There's an economic factor. Can I sell this? Is it better to be a seller or a consumer in this situation? Depending on so it's like all of these other things that play into just like, oh, weed get you high. There's all these other things of, what does it mean to be high? Is it permissible for you to look one way and be high than to look another way? Like, if you are Rasta in the United States, like, are you looked at differently than the white boy in college that's experimenting with weed? Like, it's all of these factors that go into understanding like relationships with cannabis, how we form them, where we form them, or how long we have them, like when they transition between recreational and medical. Because for me, it could be medical on Tuesday and it might be recreational on Wednesday. Like, so
Medical in the morning and recreation at night, right?
right.
That's right.
So it's like all of those components to cannabis that I think, if you're in the cannabis industry, as a producer or seller or connection piece, in cannabis, I feel like you got to ask these questions too, because what impact are you businesses make an impact on cannabis? Who's owning these businesses? How do they conduct business? Like, that's also big too. So it's like everybody has to consider all of the pieces, and just, I feel like the key to that is just, when you get information, question it, look it up, find 2-3 sources, like talk to a few people, ask people what they think, debate. Like, this is how we also open our mind up to things that we might not have thought about, even if you do consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur.
Absolutely. I
That was
certainly
just
consider myself a cannabis connoisseur, and even how it related to me down to my own personal health, and really understanding the difference between like sativa and indica. Although I enjoy and I like sativa, but because of, my quote unquote health condition, indica is more, better as far as the treatment of it, because indica is more CBD leaning versus sativa being more THC leaning. So just me doing the research and how it related to my own personal health, like y'all said, maybe medicinal in the AM, it may be a little sativa for me, and then a little indica at nighttime. You know what I'm saying? I normally like to keep a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
right. Isn't that funny? How we used to remember, we used to mix the weeds like before all this hybrid of a weed. Like,
Yeah.
and maybe we was, without knowing it, mixing sativas and indicas to get our perfect blend. So then you had like beef and broccoli, stuff like that. Like, you'll say that because you got the real green weed and the darker brown weed. They both fire. You call them one chocolate, one skunk, right? So we didn't really know a lot of times what was really what, to keep it all the way 100.
At the same time, I feel like now, so we have so many strands, people just trust whatever they say this strand do. People don't pay attention to,
Right.
like, and that's something you taught me, Dad. Like, you get a strand name, that's cool and all, but make sure you look at the weed. And if someone else tell you that same name, that weed should look the same, or else something happened. Like you can't just,
Right.
everybody can't just have like, oh, I got this kind of weed. I got Fruity Pebbles weed. Fruity Pebbles need to look the same wherever I go, but I have to know to look for that to even pay attention to, oh, this was green. It had orange hairs. Like it had a distinct smell. That way, just because that Fruity Pebble label on it, that's actually what you're getting.
Yeah. And I think even like how far back our relationship go with cannabis, I remember when it weren't that many names for it. So another example would be I remember us going to New York and we would go to Medina, which is Brooklyn, to get the lighter green weed. And then we would go to Mecca, which is Harlem, to get the browner chocolate weed. And then come back and then just say if we, chose to sell it, will have, I got Mecca or Medina. And that weed became known as Mecca and Medina train. And that's how, labels can be placed on weed too.
That's crazy because we really, you exactly right, God. We was just naming an area from which we consumed our cannabis to redistribute, right? So when we got back to our area, New Jerusalem, we had Mecca or Medina. Like, but that wasn't really giving you a strain. It's like we was calling, I got that Ari. So what you got Arizona? Like, I'm pretty sure it's more than one type of weed grown in Arizona, bro. What the hell does that mean?
No, you're definitely right. But I guess it may not have been though. Well, like I ain't gonna say that it probably was different types of weed, but Arizona probably had a certain type of weed that they was growing because that's what's hot over there. So it's like they all, like how when we spoke to Trenton Baked, and Trenton Baked was saying, oh, in Trenton we tend to like purple haze. Like people want to see their weed be purple. So maybe at that time, that's how people started experimenting. Like, let me mix that Airy with that Mecca and that give me this. And now I got to name it something different because I can't. What if I'm in Arizona? Like I can't name it Arizona now. I gotta find some new names.
Funny you say that, kid, because good Arizona, to tell the truth, was really nothing but skunk weed.
Nothing but skunk weed.
But now people are saying I got skunk. So instead, like you can run around and say I got Arizona. Like we can run around and say I got chronic. And like we wasn't having chronic, that just meant you had gas. But I can't. I say I got gas. Or young boys and your younger generation, like, okay, you got gas, but what is it? Like, you don't just be jumping.
Right.
That's true.
Down to the string.
That's why I love stuff like Leafly too. Because Leafly tell you like where the strain came from, what it's supposed to look like. They got pictures, effects. They tell you. And then now I noticed when I was using that at first, they didn't have that. But now they're more like, I guess, diligent about trying to help you place where that weed is at. So sometimes it'll tell you like you can pick this up at a dispensary 2.9 miles away from you. Like it'll tell you where to get this strain at around you.
Right, because you got to realize with things being a little bit more specialized now, like my brother IJUST is saying, when you find something that works for you, like he know indica is not really that's what he needs sativa more for his body, right?
But,
well, for me, I need more of the indica because I'm dealing with a brain type of, so like the essence of seizures and epilepsy, again, I'm not a doctor or anything, I'm just going off of my own research, is a receptor. It's almost like a excitability, or it's more of an excited, so there's extra brain activity going on. So like indica is a more of a relaxer. It naturally relaxes you. And although the human body creates its own version of cannabis compounds as endocannabinoids, and it also has its own mechanisms of CBD and THC, the two predominant strains, parts of marijuana, or the cannabis plant. So, for me, it was more of just even understanding that, because I do enjoy sativa, but sometimes I do feel the effects on how it, affects my head more versus, me being the person that was always kind of anxious. Like I remember that even coming as a child, like, always being anxious. I used to stutter, little things like that. And that's all part of that excitability that can lead to the extra brain activity, which can cause convulsions or in a person, and this is not a blanket across people who have epilepsy and convulsions, because, at the end of the day, the brain is still something that has not been mastered as far as modern research and everything like that. So, but
Brain
yeah,
is
just
more.
understanding what was better for me.
The brain is less understood than outer space.
Yes.
And
How that work?
Just
when I say
understanding those, like the receptors, like that's a rabbit hole within itself in research.
Right.
The
yeah,
CB1 receptor, the MRP55, and how does cannabis all go together with that? Like it all goes together, and that's what makes that plant such a beautiful plant. you know.
listen to you talk, right? And you just said you wasn't a doctor, but I like to disagree. What I just heard you do was diagnose yourself with anxiety,
Mhm.
like the and prescribed yourself some cannabis. So you
Right.
treated your own condition.
But see, that's what I was reading about too with my I'm calling it now a self-care boutique because I want it to be bigger than just skin and hair care, right? But Black Vanity, I was doing research and thinking about holistic health and how does this all come full circle? Because my dad likes to say everything is all inclusive. And so I'm doing the research and I like one of the questions I was researching was how is Western medicine or traditional medicine that we know in the United States different than a holistic health approach? And so a lot of what they say is like the origin of Western medicine is to diagnose symptoms and provide a pill for each symptom or a pill that can attack multiple symptoms at once, but ultimately is to prescribe a pill to treat the symptom. Whereas a holistic health takes an approach where you look at patterns in your own body, your mind, your spirit, and how they affect how your body and mind are operating. How do they influence and impact each other? And so it's not necessarily that's where people will say, oh, holistic health looks at the cause more because ultimately the goal is to create a healthy, happier person. The goal isn't to try to see, what symptoms does this person have of being unhappy and unhealthy. I mean, yes, that's the first question, but it's not the ultimate question. It's not the big picture. And that's kind of what I hear you doing too, as well, with diagnosing yourself is you look big picture. Like, how do I feel when I smoke cannabis?
I would be kind of intellectually dishonest if I didn't share with your audience. Although, I still do cannabis and smoke cannabis, because of, things like we spoke about and, like motor vehicles and driving, I still have to take a Western medicine
Mm-hmm.
in order
Mm-hmm.
for me to maintain like my driver's license, and I have to do like an annual EEG, which I just did, which is like a 24-hour evaluation. And I've done MRIs, I've done all of that, and there are like no masses, no tumors. Like again, this is how I fall in the category of unspecified convulsions. So I just wanted to share that as well. So if you are one way or the other that's listening and you may have a medical condition like me, you still probably want to consult your doctor, and whether you're choosing to still use cannabis, just make the best decision for yourself.
Yeah, and I feel like
Yes.
I like that you said that because I like the fact that you looked at all avenues and you built your own health plan. You said, I want to take these components of holistic health and looking at it, and I want to take these components. I'm comfortable with this for my health. You made that choice. I think that's what I'm big on is choice. Like, don't make it seem as if this is my only option one way or the other. Let me see the whole smorgasbord and I take what I want to take. Because I mean, that's just the reality of we live in a society where Western medicine that's available. Not to say that it's always horrible, but you decide your mix. If you want to be 85% holistic, the other remaining percent Western or vice versa. That was up to you. That's what I think is big. Is like educating yourself so you understand everything and you're able to make an informed and educated decision.
So my duty is to teach knowledge and wisdom to the human families of the planet Earth. That's my duty. And take that duty seriously. In order to perform that duty, I must know all that I can. So knowledge of self is key. Right? And in knowing that, what I have to do is know all that we can. A doctor is nothing but a health practitioner. The word being practitioner, meaning he practices medicine. He's an expert because he's time required to know the field of study in which he's now to give an educated opinion to you on what to do. He is not the end all to your health, nor the be all, nor is he your enemy. So I will never, ever discredit Western, Eastern, any medicine, because what I'm telling you is everything is inclusive. It's up to you to have the best knowledge that you can have, to be the most informed that you can be, to make the best decision for you. So I make light of a lot of things, but when we talk about health, things are very serious. Right? Only thing that I'm saying about the truthfulness of this is, in our society, we cannot take a doctor's word to be 100% valid without doing the knowledge ourselves.
My own doctor is a diabetic. My doctor is a diabetic. You know what I'm saying?
So it's amazing to me because you'll have dentists with bad teeth. He's an expert on teeth, but he's not practicing in it. So he's showing me he has the knowledge, but he's not showing me the wisdom, which isn't a full understanding. My job for me is to get the knowledge, me to put it use, gain some wisdom so I can have a full understanding of things.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get information out to people that I have. You can take it or leave it. You can check it too, though, because before I probably gave it to you, I checked many sources and I gave you my opinion on it, which some people may take for me giving it as fact. No, I'm just standing on it hard because I have things to validate where I'm speaking from.
But that's also like goes back to like, how do we know what we know? Because experience or narrative or anecdotes or stories should not be negated as knowledge. It's just that you have to understand this is this person's perspective. How likely do you feel it may be your experience as well? How do you resonate with that? And you take what is of value to you and you use that to develop your own understanding of the world. Like that is how people learn. Before you go to school and you open up a book, you learn by your parents telling you things like, stories about their lives or what they did, or when I was 3, this was like this. Like that is the things that stick with you. And so I feel like there's a space for kind of like what we do, I guess, on this podcast. But like you saying, like you give your opinion on it, but the opinion is informed by stories, by your personal experiences. And I think that's a part of full understanding. It's like, what do the facts say? What do the statistics say? What do the numbers, the data say? But it's also, how is that materially, like, what does that look like in practice? What does that look like in the real world? How does that come to fruition? Okay, you tell me, like, same thing as I say all the time, you tell me I didn't look up the statistic, but let's just say for the sake of the example, 1 in every 4 Black men are incarcerated because of cannabis, right? That's a statistic to know, but the story behind that is that someone's son, that's someone's father, that's a community member, maybe this, and then to find out that it's legal is like, what does that mean now for that statistic and that story?
Things I wanted to speak about, because even on, speaking to my brother I right now, we go back to a time where, and that's why I like talking about this topic, where if 1993, if I just would have told somebody, man, I need to smoke this, my condition. They would have said a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't explain to someone in 1993 that the weed, cannabis, is behaving as my aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've been saying that for a long time, and people have been telling me I've been crazy. And then now all of a sudden, am I still crazy, or were you crazy all those years?
Those years.
Can't have it both ways. Let me give y'all an anecdote real quick. I just want to get y'all feelings on this, right? Because this is very pertinent to me. So today is, today's time is 2023, and this is a fictitious story that I'm making up. I just want your two opinions on it, right? I go to the store, and in front of the store, I see a young boy, and in his hand, he has a styrofoam cup. I say, "Hey, what's going on, nephew? What you got in there?" He said, "Oh, man, it's that lean." You know what I mean? I'm like, word, right? As we talking, a dope fiend walks by, scratching his arm and everything, He come up to the dude with the cup in his hand. He say, "Hey, what's going on, nephew? You got something for me?" You know what I mean? Nephew go in his pocket, give him two bags, take the money from the dope fiend go around the corner. As the dope fiend going around the corner, nephew look back at me and say, "Damn, OJ, he doped the rug out. I'm gotta get this money though, right?" I say to him, "Well, don't talk about him so bad yet because, chance you be like that in a couple years because I have the knowledge of what's in that cup and what he just gave that man. They derived from the same place."
Mm-hmm.
But
And
he's
to be honest,
misconceived.
like coming from that generation, we live in a generation of functioning addicts for real. It's just that the dope fiend
The point
looks
I'm making,
different.
though, Kia, the point I'm making is in his misinformation, he does not realize that his codeine is heroin. In our era, a young boy is stand on the corner and sell crack a mile a minute. This happens. Listen to Biggie say, "Don't get high on your own supply." And in his mind, that just means don't smoke a glass pipe. And then he hit the bill every day and laugh at the crackhead. Now, what I'm saying is, I'm not judging either one. I'm saying the one that's laughing at the crackhead shouldn't have been judging the crackhead either.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. It's because you have to look at too. Some people are gonna do the research like we did and try to understand the scientific fact. And then, like if you think about it, for instance, like the two primary reasons why people don't smoke crack is either because you understand fundamentally what's going on there, you understand the science and why you become addicted, or you don't like the look of what it looked like, the look of an addict or the idea of being an addict has a taboo and you want to avoid that taboo. Because there's some people like that may not research like us. They just go on based off of what they see. And if what they see is that people have a good response to this, then they may want to do that regardless. And if they have a bad response to it, then they're not going to do it because they don't want the social taboos. And so in my age group, we have misconstructed what it means to form unhealthy relationships with things because a lot of the people who drink lean or might pop pills, they got money. They feel like, and like you said the same way, like, oh, you're not gonna go with the glass pipe, but you're gonna hit the bill because that is associated with money, nice things. I get it. Like I get it.
Let me tell you what's real though, kid. Let me tell you what's real. And I'm not cutting you off. It's cyclical. It ain't just your age group. When you become my age group, the age group that you like, y'all gonna be my age group, and y'all gonna be saying that about the age group before you.
Mm-hmm.
It's cyclical. It's cyclical, right?
Yeah.
Listen, alcohol is nothing but sugar, right? So a person will drink a bottle all day and then talk about this fat motherfucker who eat cakes and cookies all day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they look obese. Yet the person drinking the bottle all day might die from diabetes first.
Right.
It's just about having knowledge, right? And I say that because I just want to inform the people, and I hope that's what we do. So today we had my brother come on and talk about his medical conditions, and I've been on a journey with him. I'm letting him speak his story, and we've been on this journey together because what I want for myself, I want for my brother. So that research he telling you he did, I helped him do some of that. Not really, but I'm doing my own research and relaying what I know to my man because I want what's best for him.
Right.
Cannabis and my relationship with cannabis helped me take more control over my own health, you know? So that's almost like some would say, well, cannabis, how does cannabis help you do that? Because through my relationship with cannabis led to more research, which let me know more about my own health and how to take better control of my own health. Where to the point that, I haven't allowed them to put a label on me because you got to prove that it's this, or, for any other reasons, where I'm well informed now, especially when I listen to Boozer Bud podcasts. I get more informed and makes me want to do more research. But, I'm more informed now, so I can have a better conversation with my neurologist. And that's all because of my own relationship with cannabis.
So, now, when we was coming up, I remember going to the courts after just smoking a blunt or something, and those that didn't smoke at that time would be like, "Oh man, a couple years you ain't even be able to run up and down that court." In 2023, them same people that told me that can't even walk to their corner. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Half ounce
because
and play ball.
They was misinformed.
And we had 40s back then.
40s and everything, but I always drank my water. I always ate a certain diet. I don't eat a lot of candy. I'm worse now in my old age. I eat cakes and cookies and things. It probably affects my eczema. I'll be knowing certain things, but we sin in life. It's just real, but I just try to keep a certain homeostasis, a certain equilibrium.
Balance. You got to have a balanced health plan.
If I go up, I got to come down. If I swing too far to the left, we got to make it right.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. This chapter in life is balance, finding a balance in all things. And for me, like, I think self-diagnosed as well, but I think I struggle with anxiety, and I'm realizing that what people see as high-level performance, that's a great thing. I have a work ethic. If I set my mind to it, so far I've been able to do it. But I realize that comes with high functioning anxiety, to where on the outside I look okay, but inside my brain is not stopping. Like, even when I should be sleeping, I'm thinking. So to where now my rest is affected because I can't sleep. I can't get into, the circadian rhythm. I can't actually fall into a REM sleep. Like I can't, I'm just up really. Like, my body's at rest, but my mind just keep going. And that looks like what we know as insomnia. So
yes.
To the public, I look like
you're your father's daughter. You're your father's daughter because
it looks like I just show up and I just do what I just do, and really I'm working on like 2 hours of sleep, and I'm trying to overcompensate that I've been on 2 hours of sleep, and don't want people to realize that actually, like, if I stop moving right now, I'm really gonna fall asleep. That's why I gotta keep moving and doing stuff, because I'm tired. Like, so I realized for me, balance, we brought that balance in because that's one of the first things that I would do that. Like, I feel like it messed up my cypher if I brought, like, don't get me wrong, I can work and smoke, but if it's like my dedicated smoke time that I have every day, I don't bring work into the session. I just can't, because it's just like, this is my time to just be one with me, my thoughts, whatever I want to do about today.
You know what's funny? You saying that, kid, when I was younger, I just can attest to this. Whenever we together, like, they be like, "Oh yeah, Caesar, he knows he just gonna pass out on you." And everybody thinks it's because I got high all day. Don't nobody know your real world. They don't know I've been up all night doing all type of things, this, that, and the third. I don't really rest. So my rest came in the form of when we all comfortable and they playing the game or whatever, I might sleep for 3 hours. Right? We got a term, the power nap. Mm-hmm. My life and my sleep patterns revolved around power naps. to this day, I rarely, they say you suggested sleep time is 6 to 8 hours a night. We might get that if I average it out weekly, and I don't even think that's the case, to tell you the truth. Now, I'm talking about a continued pattern of this. I may sleep only 4 to 6 hours every night, man, weekend or not. So when you speak about that insomnia, or right, and we talking about a person who smoked weed. Imagine if I didn't smoke this weed.
Right.
And that's the whole point, that you do smoke the weed to help with that insomnia.
That's what I'm
because
trying to
those
say,
were all.
When you do too many drugs and you have a negative reaction to it, what do they call that? What is that termed?
Overdose. If I'm walking with you.
Overdose. Oh, yes, you are walking with me. And I just asked neutrally because I just want not to test your knowledge, but I want to see if I can express it in a way to come up with it. And that's exactly it. Overdose. Now, let's break that word down. Overdose. Right? Over, too much, above the top. Right? Dose, an increment or an amount in which we should take. Right? In which we should take, or which should be applied. So, if drugs are illicit and not to be used, how can I overdose on something that never should have been used? I poisoned myself, right?
But yeah, because for alcohol, you say alcohol poisoning. You don't say, yo, man, he OD'd on alcohol.
And really, alcohol poisoning is nothing but overdosing on alcohol. But they don't want to. They don't want to say the same two words. They lie to you in your face. If they say the same two words, it either lessens the effect on one or it greatens the effect on the other. So you don't want to say, you had an overdose on alcohol. But, alcohol is not supposed to be a drug. At Boozabug, we just hope to open everyone's eyes with the help of our godly plant, cannabis.
Yeah, and I think it's a journey of not telling you what to think, but more so giving you food for thought to fuel.
That is it. That is it exactly. I'm giving you God degree. I just understand me, and I hope everyone else understands me, because if you don't, go do your research and find out what God degree is.
Look up what a cypher is, too.
Yes.
While you're at it, make sure you look up that Boozabug, too. And get informed out there.
Oh, man, this has been a great conversation, man. And I hope we definitely brought some light to some of those that may have been in the darkness, man. Well, we done touched on some medical issues, and for anybody that may liken their situation to what you may have heard, I hope this gives you a little bit of guidance. Like I said, our job here, make sure you stay in tune, stay in touch, and stay informed.
Right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, man? More so than just your relationship with cannabis. You got any social media brands, any ways to get at you, any businesses of yours you would like to promote?
Yeah, I just want to say once again, it's been an honor to be a guest here on Boozabug Podcast. This is a podcast that I listen to. It's very informative. And you can reach me at Winston IJUST McIntosh on Facebook. Other than that, it's Entrepreneur Chamber on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. So once again, thank you all for Akia. Thank you, CI, for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you too, bro. Love both of y'all. This is a great family conversation.
Right. Love y'all too.
I'm about to put one in the air.
Probably makes three of us, like the Dreads will say, three of us.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Peace.
Peace.